before. This meeting, or these meetings, are based on the scripture of Ephesians 5:11, which tells us not to have anything to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but to expose them. And that's what we're doing here, is exposing the unfruitful works of darkness. Because what happens is, so now we're going to get into who was Jezebel. And in the Old Testament, Jezebel was a wicked woman who was from Phoenicia. She married Ahab, who was a king of Israel during the time of Elijah. And you can find her story in detail in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. All right. In order to understand Jezebel and what she is about and what her spirit is about, her characteristics and her traits and all the building blocks, the elements to her, let's look at what her name means. And her name means to exalt Baal. So for most of us, who's Baal? I mean, really, so that doesn't really clear anything up unless you know who Baal is and what Baal is about. So, as you can see in the picture here, this is Baal, and this so-called God is usually depicted, or can be, there's two ways to depict him as a god, and that would be like as a bull, and then I'll show you a picture of the other one later. So who is Baal? So Baal the god, and that's the other one that you'll often see if you look up his, what he looks like, or history about him. The word Baal actually means Lord, and there were many different localized deities. And even in the scripture, when you look in the scripture, you'll see like something that'll say Baal of Peor, Baal of such and such, or this town or the other town. So there were many different versions of this Baal, of this god. He was the god of Canaan and Phoenicia. Remember I told you Jezebel was from Phoenicia. He entered Israel during the time of the judges, and he became widespread during the time of Ahab. And that was directly because Ahab married Jezebel, who was loyal to her God, and spread her God, which is idolatry, among the Israelites. He was also named the god of what they believed, the god of fertility for their crops, and as well as people. He was the sun god. He was acknowledged as the storm god. These are just different things that they acknowledged him for. And probably besides the fact that he became widespread during Ahab's reign, the most important thing is about his worship. And his worship contains many rituals, including prostitution at the temple, loud screaming, self-inflicted injury, wild abandon, and human sacrifice, which is murder. So
and
we
usually happen with children.
Right. Usually parents sacrificing their children.
Yeah.
So all these things, we see suicide, we see murder, and all these things with his worship. So if Jezebel is one who exalts Baal, she's one who does these things. Okay, this is part of her. And then we have Baal the demon. And if you study demonology, you'll see that picture. If you look up Baal, I looked up. I tried to find out. I tried to research why he's depicted that way, and there's really no basis as to why he is depicted that way. The only thing I could gather from it is I can understand why he would be so ugly and have spider legs. That's the only thing that I could understand about it. But anyhow, according to the Zohar, which is one of the basic scriptures for Jewish mysticism, known as Kabbalah, he's listed in there, and he is equal in rank to the Archangel Raphael, according to the Zohar. And in the Lesser Keys of Solomon, which is sort of, we know that Solomon also committed idolatry during his life, because we know he had over 700 wives and over 300 concubines, and he married the women that God specifically said not to marry, the ones that he told him would turn his heart from God, and he did that, and so it was. His heart was turned from God, and so there is a book that has a collection of spells and incantations and list of demons, and it's the Lesser Keys of Solomon, and he is the first of the 72 demons that are listed in that book. He is said to govern 66 legions of demons. All I know is that he's triple-headed. That's how they depict him, and I know that he was, they actually drew him out during the time of the English Puritans, and that's about as far as I could get to why they portrayed him in that way. And then he speaks forcefully and imparts invisibility and wisdom. And that's sort of like when you had mentioned the girl that was possessed and she was speaking truth. Again, like you said, he knows our past and he knows our calling. So all of that together with this can tell you why some of these people know things that you would think they shouldn't know. And then he's also said that he rules the East. Anybody have any questions about Baal the god or Baal the demon, which are really the same thing? They're really the same. They it just changed, over time. But they're really the same entity or the same spirit. Any questions? All right. So the spirit of Jezebel, and this was just interesting to look at as I was looking at images of Jezebel. These were just some of the interesting images. Cleopatra, we think about her. A lot of times we kind of think about her as like that woman, right? She was powerful, she was beautiful, like she had it all.
How we depict, or how the church has depicted Jezebel.
Right.
We think of, Cleopatra most of the time.
Right. And that's the thing. Like a lot of women are like, want the Cleopatra.
Yes.
They want to be the Cleopatra.
Yes, the seducing spirit.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's seductive,
Yeah.
and not just to the male, but to the female, because the female is seduced by wanting to be that way.
Yeah.
Okay. But Cleopatra is a Jezebel, or was a Jezebel. She had a Jezebel spirit working within her. You know how many men she dominated, how many men she had, how many men she conquered, and then we look at this picture of this woman who's clearly like a serpent kind of looking thing, but how crazy is it that you can still see sex in that picture? You know what I'm saying? You can still see seduction in that picture. You can see lust in that picture, right? And it's an awful picture. But all those things are in there. Like you can see them coming through. Because normally you would think about sex and lust as being after beautiful things, right? After nice looking things. But in reality, that is like sex and lust with the masculine.
Yeah.
All right. And that was just I had just put that there just so that we could see